Now he's going to defend why he is DMing a woman, asking about her sex life. Mr. White Knight, treat women with respect. Here we go. You ready? Let's hear the explanation.
I'll defend that. And it goes to what Rob Noor just said. Here's the reason why I said that.
The following conversation happens between Brian and Rachel in the open dialogue. He says, what would you say to a woman in her 30s or 40s that's unmarried and wants to find the right guy? Something like that. Because she couldn't find the right guy. And she's like, go to church. It's the first thing she says. And then she says, well, really, is that what it is, that she couldn't find the right guy? Or is that she had like 40 and 50 hookups and now she's trying to settle for the right guy? And Brian's response was, you're talking about yourself, implying that it's Rachel that's hooked up. That's what led me to ask the question that I end up asking. And so I will play it because thank you to Uncensored America for allowing us to clip it. By the way, this first clip is a amazing young man who went to both debates with his father. Very cool guy. And he wanted to ask Brian a question. I'll just leave it speak for itself.
All right, Brian, what's it like debating a woman where you can't just default to asking to see her penis?
Is that a serious question? I don't even know what that means.
We'll go to the next question.
Very intelligent question. I would ask for a little bit more. But I would assume that probably nobody's asked to see his penis in a very long time.
His response to that was, I'm 16. A little funny. Of course, he pretends to not know. That's fine. Here is this handsome gentleman is about to ask a question. So I'll leave this play out and then I'll explain. Hey, how's it going, Brian? I appreciate that you said that, like, you had to bring up the personal stuff. I think that is true. And sometimes people don't understand when you're
So for those of you who don't know who this guy is,
now notice he couldn't even let me get out the question, and he's going to start talking about me. But I'm just a nobody. Who knows me? Apparently I'm in Brian's head, though. Here you go.
I had a few debates with him, and this should be a very
the great Rob Noor, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was actually giving you a compliment. I'm sorry. It's difficult in debates like this where there's a personal nature and you have to bring in things that are relevant to people's lives. It's not really an insult, even when you're implying she slept with 50 men. I understand how it's important to this debate, and I appreciate that. So given that, feminists such as Melissa Fabello and Caitlin Berg have written extensively about the problem of men adapting feminist talking points in order to harm women. Given allegations that have been made against you of financially exploiting women and your treatment of Savannah Hernandez, who was assaulted by a man,
I'm happy to
and
talk
how
about
you
that.
mocked them, do you think,
Happy
and
to
this
talk
is the
about
question
that.
to both of you, do you think that you exhibit those same sort of toxic behaviors of
Happy.
men embracing feminist talking points in order
Sure.
to attack women?
I'm happy to talk about that. So first of all, I'll start with Savannah Hernandez.
Now, of course, he can answer however he wants, but the point of me asking this question is that he's a sneaky fucker. I'll explain exactly what a sneaky fucker is in a minute. But he is one of those feminists that seems to be overly hostile at times to women, overly aggressive. In other words, I'm not accusing him of any crime or anything. What I'm saying is he shares the tendencies of these male feminists that actual female feminists have written about, as I was suggesting. Full disclosure, I had to look up their names, but I know I'd read these articles where you had these female feminists saying, look, a lot of men that come into our movement and say, yay, go women, are actually just there to exploit the situation. And I think that's a lot of what Brian is. And so seeing as how he wanted to bring up Rachel's personal life and we have to in this debate. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's just we have to talk about it because it's relevant to the conversation. I agree, Brian. So let's talk about your personal life. And that's exactly why I wanted to ask him this question. If he's going to say it's important to talk about Rachel's personal life, yuck, I get to talk about some things that people criticize her for online. Why can't we do the same? Turnabout's fair play. Now, how will he answer? Actually, no, I actually do advocate for women. Let's see how he responds. Savannah Hernandez, of course, who you know, is the woman who was shoved by two people. Three, actually. The Ostrenkos or something. I apologize, I'm screwing up their names. I'll be as brief as possible. She was with Turning Point USA. She's a conservative. All of these lefties are surrounding her in Minneapolis, I believe it was, blowing whistles, bullhorns, etc. Father tells his daughter, go blow that whistle in her ear. People in the crowd say, your daughter and your wife are going to throw hands or attack her. Yeah, I know, that's how they are. Ha ha ha. She ends up being like sort of pushed out of the way. She pushes back a little. Big Bad Dad waits until the crowd sort of has her walking away and slams her viciously in the back. Of course, then the following day, they go on Brian Shapiro's, Mr. Shapiro's radio program. We covered it extensively on the show. He basically lets them bumble about and then gives their lawyer's statement claiming that the father feared for his daughter's safety. That's why he had to shove an aggressing lady in the back violently. Now, he had no doubt since saw the actual footage that showed just how bad this family was. And yet, instead of saying, you know what, I got that wrong. I brought that family on, and now that I've seen the evidence, it was wrong. Instead of doing that, he decides to go after the lady that was pushed, claiming she has a fake concussion. He's going after all sorts of ladies that are involved in this story. I think Sarah Fields, he went after her as well. I could be wrong. Maybe it was over something else. But basically, he's like threatening lawsuits, helping with lawsuits, being an all-around dickhead in the DMs of this woman who was assaulted, talking shit on her. She's not a real journalist. She's this, that, and the other. So here's his chance. Okay, Brian, that sounds like what these male feminists do. They pretend to be these champion of women, but then they treat them like shit.
By the way, nobody's been arrested in that situation. I've been talking to Savannah.
Irony of ironies, literally within 24 hours of Brian Shapiro making that statement, the mother, the father, and the husband were all federally arrested. No one could lose like Brian Shapiro. He's so fucking bad, he single-handed... In fact, I would not be surprised if Kash Patel watched this debate and Todd Blanche watched the debate and was like, well, it's time to indict them now, just to embarrass this Brian Shapiro guy.
First of all, I'll start with Savannah Hernandez. By the way, nobody's been arrested in that situation. I've been talking to Savannah for 3 years. Never have I ever condoned violence or said somebody deserves to be assaulted on either side of the aisle. I've said that on 4 national networks since.
Yes, you could say that, but when you bring on the assaulters to do a puff piece and make their legal defense case, it belies your words. You didn't say she deserved to be assaulted. You just covered up for the people that assaulted her. So when you say, trust me, I'm against it, doesn't seem that way. That's not what it seems like.
That incident happened. I said it on Pierce yesterday. My issue with Savannah Hernandez is this. And by the way, the worst thing I said to her was I called her a grifter, a right-wing grifter. Okay? Now, I also
said she faked her concussion. You said you were going to help the family file a lawsuit, though I don't know if that was against her or another woman, but...
also interviewed somebody that used to work with her at InfoWars, had her on my show, agreed with me. That doesn't mean that anybody deserves to be assaulted. I've said that over and over.
Now notice he does something very clever here. When he's talking about Savannah, in a negative light, he's talking specifics. She's a grifter. This is what I said to her. I talked to people around her. When he's talking about rejecting violence, he's talking about it in the abstract. And by the way, this doesn't mean anyone deserves violence. I'm against violence. In the abstract, he's against it. In the specific...
Again, the family and the man who pushed her, which I know he regrets doing that.
Why's he regret if he was defending his daughter? If I punch someone in the face because they're harming my son, I'm not going to regret it at all. I'll say I was fucking proud of it. Even if I get arrested, I'd say fuck that. So what's this regret about? Now, notice immediately what he does. Yeah, I didn't want anyone to get hurt. Doesn't say, so I regret doing the puff piece for them. And actually, I've seen the evidence that she was assaulted, and that is terrible. Instead, he goes, I didn't really say anything that bad, and I don't want to see anyone get assaulted. But that guy, he regrets it. And they're the victims. People are saying bad shit about them. Does that sound like a guy who's upset about the assault? Or does it sound like a guy who's more interested in covering up the assault and the people who did the assaulting?
They've had death threats. There have been people that have threatened to the wife and the daughter. I've had plenty of private conversations with them and their attorneys. With that being said, I've also said, if somebody gets arrested, charged, and convicted, let the chips fall where they may. What I don't like...
I also love this argument, right? And you hear this, these lefties do this all the time. And what it is this appeal to authority. What happens is they know that the majority of these places and these institutions are on their side, right? So they're like, oh, whatever the institution says is right, that's what's right. But then as soon as one of those institutions go against what they want, in general, I don't know, we'll have to see what Brian says, But in general, what you see the people that say this sort of stuff on the left, they'll flip out. So like the Supreme Court decision today, ending race-based districting, they'll be like, this is bad. This is illegitimate. This is terrible. It's weird. When it's a decision they don't like, all of a sudden they could talk about the specifics and why they disagree with it. Otherwise, they just say, whatever the court say, I'm fine with. I'm fine. I'm fine with it. That's what he does. Like, well, Trump's a 37-time felon. What, you want to talk about the details of that case? No. Nope. I trust the jury. I trust them. That must be the truth. Brian, why can't you give your opinion on this matter without a jury having to weigh in or without an arrest having to happen? So if there is no arrest, then you'd say, I can't decide whether or not from the litany of videos we have, this woman was assaulted. I just can't decide. Do you think he would keep that strict up? Presumably he believes that there were racist cops in the past. So if a Klan member brutalized a young black man, would he say, unless there's an arrest, I'm not prepared to condemn that. I don't know. How would I know? Let the chips fall where they may. I'm not looking into the situation. Now, I know he wouldn't say that. You want to know how I know? Because this motherfucker still goes on. What about the shooting of Renee Good? That's terrible. That's murder. I'd say, Brian, let the chips fall where they may. He hasn't been charged. He hasn't been charged. Let the chips fall where they may. He hasn't been found guilty in a jury. So why are we even talking about the specifics of this case? And he'd say, well, that's fucking bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. That's because of the corruption, because the cops are corrupt. Blah, blah. See how it only works one way? See that? So he could sit there and I talk to the lawyers and he could interview these guys. Oh, I feel so bad for this family. And Savannah Hernandez is a grifter. And you were just doing this to protect your daughter, right? Yeah, that's what you're saying. Sure, yeah, that sounds good. That's basically what the dad said. It was laughable. And even now, he's like, after he's seen the evidence, he's like, well, there's no arrest yet. Let the chips fall. Well, now there are arrests. 24 hours later. It's pathetic. Take a fucking stand. Just tell us the truth. If you're like, I don't think it was an assault, say that. Or I do think it was an assault. Say that. Or say, I don't know, I didn't really follow the case. Fine. But you brought the fucking assaulters on your channel and basically did a puff piece for them. Now you fucking are invested. So tell us what you think. I don't have an opinion. I don't have an opinion. All I know is this poor family received threats. That's all I know. I feel so bad. And the woman that got pushed, she's a grifter.
Are people like the Cam Higbees, like the Nick Sorters and others that go to political rallies and they're looking to get that viral moment. Now, do I know if Savannah Hernandez wanted to be pushed or not? No, I don't.
Now he implies that maybe she wanted to be attacked. You see, the problem is when right-wingers go into these left-wing spaces and provoke shit. Okay, now talk about the ICE protesters. How about the protesters outside the White House or outside Trump's tower? Those people that are just trying to provoke a reaction? How about when left-wingers show up to Trump rallies? Those people trying to provoke a reaction? How about when left-wingers showed up to rallies like Unite the Right or January 6th? Were those left-wingers trying to provoke a reaction? How much you want to bet that at Unite the Right, Heather Heyer, that got ran over and died, how much you want to bet that Brian Shapiro's take wasn't, well, let the chips fall where they may. They found that guy guilty and he's spending life in prison. But hey, maybe I don't respect Heather Heyer for showing up and provoking. And I don't know, maybe she did want to get hit or maybe not. How much you want to bet that wasn't Brian Shapiro's take? When the left goes against the right, he'll say they're heroes. They're standing up against fascists and racists. And if they go into the lion's den, that's bravery. But when it's the right, these are grifters intentionally provoking a response.
But I do know that when you go to these types of events and you're looking for that viral moment and you're not a journalist, that was my other issue with Savannah. Her first job was at InfoWars, okay?
What the fuck is the gatekeeping of journalism? This elitism is so fucking funny to me. Trust in journalism's at an all-time low because it turns out journalists aren't journalists. They're fucking propagandists. I find it laughable that anyone wants to point to any independent type media personality and say, you're not a real journalist. Who the fuck are we supposed to be looking to? Jake Tapper? Anderson Cooper? Jim Acosta? Those are the real journalists? Fuck you. Is Don Lemon a real journalist? Brian Shapiro's buddy, who's been charged with barging into a church to violate people's rights? Is that a real journalist? I personally don't give a fuck if Brian Shapiro or anyone else for that matter thinks that Savannah Hernandez is a real journalist. She has every fucking right to be there. Period.
She's never wrote articles about anything. She's not a real journalist. And when you go around the country asking people what's a man and what, by the way, I'm not a journalist either. I never said I was.
What the fuck? But
When you go around the country saying what's a man and what's a woman,
this is kind of turning
that
into
doesn't make you a journalist. And by the way, any allegation.
I want you to listen to this. Answer. Again, I interrupted a lot. We're just going to listen to it in its entirety. Do you exhibit those toxic traits? What female feminists say are men adopting their talking points and claiming to be champions of them, and then they're really people that are taking advantage of women? Listen to his answer. That uninterrupted, just marvel at a guy who could spew utter fucking bullshit. It is impressive how he could talk so much and say so little. So here you go. Here's the answer to that question.
I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah. So first of all, I'll start with Savannah Hernandez. By the way, nobody's been arrested in that situation. I've been talking to Savannah for 3 years. Never have I ever condoned violence or said somebody deserves to be assaulted on either side of the aisle. I've said that on 4 national networks since that incident happened. I said it on Pierce yesterday. My issue with Savannah Hernandez is this. And by the way, the worst thing I said to her was I called her a grifter, a right-wing grifter, okay? Now, I also interviewed somebody that used to work with her at InfoWars, had her on my show, agreed with me. That doesn't mean that anybody deserves to be assaulted. I've said that over and over again. The family and the man who pushed her, which I know he regrets doing that, they've had death threats. There have been people that have threatened to the wife and the daughter. I've had plenty of private conversations with them and their attorneys. With that being said, I've also said, if somebody gets arrested, charged, and convicted, let the chips fall where they may. What I don't like are people like the Cam Higbees, like the Nick Sorters, and others that go to political rallies and they're looking to get that viral moment. Now, do I know if Savannah Hernandez wanted to be pushed or not? No, I don't. But I do know that when you go to these types of events and you're looking for that viral moment and you're not a journalist, that was my other issue with Savannah. Her first job was at InfoWars, okay? She's never wrote articles about anything. She's not a real journalist. And when you go around the country asking people what's a man and what, by the way, I'm not a journalist either. I never said I was. When you go around the country saying what's a man and what's a woman, that doesn't make you a journalist.
2 minutes. That started at 1 minute, 30 seconds, and now we're at 3 minutes, 30 seconds. 2 minutes. About a minute and a half in, or a minute, 15 seconds in, you can see Rachel sort of look to James, the moderator. She's like, what's he doing? And now she's like, again. And even James is like, this is turning into just a rant? He didn't even begin to... Is your rhetoric towards Savannah? The only things he said that were relevant, I just called her a grifter. And she's a bad person. She's not really a journalist. And maybe she had it coming. Maybe she wanted to get hit. I don't even know. It doesn't even begin to broach answering in any way of a competent way. Okay? 2 minutes. James is like, that's it. Now let's listen.
And by the way,
back now to the other thing. The allegation from Sarah Spector.
Allegations that you've talked about, any, are false. And why do I say that?
We do have to wrap this up.
Okay, well, this is important.
He'll go on forever.
I had a death threat.
Rachel says he'll go on forever. Here we go, ready?
Yesterday.
Death threat. Again, everyone, all these people on the left gets death threats. Victim, 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 victim. I get death threats. The Wilsons get death threats. You didn't hear Rachel talking about it. The Wilsons had to hire security. Did Brian?
Where somebody said they were going to go. They
Look at James's face there. It's like, geez, look, just look.
Forever.
I had a death threat yesterday where somebody.
Look at this. It's like, what are you doing? And I that's the face on me of, yep, I knew this was what was coming. Here we go. Victim Brian Shapiro.
Said they were going to go. They put my address out there. I got into this business knowing. He asked me the question. I'm answering it.
It doesn't even have to do with the question.
Then blame him. It wasn't about feminism.
Just real quick follow-up. Now, I should have let it go and let Rachel answer, but one of the things that he's saying, what he's implying here is, this is what it sounded like to me. Someone tell me. Of course, it's hard to fucking figure out what he's trying to say. I think what he's saying here is this. No, all of these allegations against me are bad, and now I'm receiving threats. In other words, we have to be careful about making allegations because it could result in people threatening. That's the thrust of what, okay, given that, I asked the second question. But notice how he goes on this meandering fucking tirade. Now we're up to 2.5 minutes where even the opponent and even the moderator's like, this is turning into a screed or something? Like, what is happening? And he blames me. My question was absolutely relevant to the debate. If it's relevant to talk about Rachel Wilson's past marriage when talking about feminism and the possible benefits or detriments of it, shouldn't we also be able to talk about your behaviors towards women and whether or not, as female feminists have said, there are male feminists or people that speak up for male feminists who tend to be toxic towards them? Does your behavior show that? That's completely relevant. The fact that he was incapable of answering it without just meandering for 2.5 minutes, which he did the whole fucking debate, to where even the moderator's like, I don't know what you're trying to do here, man. He can't help himself. This is his default. Just fucking spew out bullshit at great lengths of time and hope that everyone's confused enough to go, maybe he's not the dumbest person we've ever seen? I couldn't figure out what was being said. But he does seem like a victim, so I feel bad for him, I guess is somehow the strategy here. So it's my fault that he meandered on. Notice I didn't interrupt him. So I asked the second question. All right, if it seems to be that you're implying that because this woman has made this allegation and other people have asked about it, and now you're receiving threats, the implication seems to be you got to be careful about what you're labeling other people. Okay.
Adopted feminist talking
He made
points
claims.
to attack women. And
So the answer is no. The answer is
I'll
no.
just say real quick, I understand it seems your argument there is you have to be careful with accusations or it could lead to death threats.
The answer is no.
You call
No.
Trump a pedo all the time. They just tried to kill him like 3 days ago.
Who's they? Who's they?
The person that
The person.
was the
Thank you.
anti-Trumper.
Thank you. The person.
Yeah, will you retract you calling Trump a pedo and will you acknowledge that rhetoric?
What I have
helps
said,
lead to damage against
what I
women
have said
threats?
over and over again.
Now, is he going to retract calling Trump a pedo? Let's hear. Or is he going to prove that he is?
I believe, just like I believe with Bill Clinton, that both Bill Clinton and Donald Trump have probably did some horrible things to women. Donald Trump is also a liable sexual abuser. Donald Trump is also named 30,000 times in the Epstein files. And if you're going to say that I believe that Donald Trump may have done some horrible things to kids, then maybe you should call out the other side too. Donald Trump just asked for, 6 Democrats he called for them to be executed 3 months ago. Donald Trump is the guy who said, rough him up, I'll pay your legal bills. So if you're going to call out one side, you better call out the other one too. You're done now.
The next question.
You're done. I answered your question.
James, since Rob said that was a question for both of us, I just want to quickly say this guy who is the white knight defender of women and
I never said I was.
Just in case you're wondering, you can find all sorts of posts that say stuff like this. Here is him way back in October of 2025, pushing back against Cat Turd, saying the pedo in the Epstein files should be in the White House. Ha ha ha. Trump, that's who he's calling a pedo there. Now, did you hear him say, I regret calling Trump that? You're right. I should be more careful with my language, especially because someone repeating that exact accusation tried to kill Trump 3 days ago. Did you hear him say that? Nah, he didn't say that. Did he say, actually, Trump is that? Nah, he didn't say that. Instead, he said, I think Trump and Bill Clinton have both done sexual crimes. And I think Trump is liable for a sexual crime. That wasn't the question. Someone tried to kill Trump calling him a pedo. That's exactly what you've called him. And now you're on stage saying we have to be careful about accusations because it can lead people to do death threats. Okay, let's take at face value that maybe Brian Shapiro here did get a threat. Okay, well, we know Trump did, and we know why. Because that guy believed Trump was the very thing that Brian Shapiro calls him. So is Brian going to have some introspection and say, my mistake? That was too far? Of course not. Of course not. He does not give a fuck. It's all fake emotional. Oh my God, we just have to be, someone made an allegation and it's false. The allegation needs to be false. Now I receive death threats. You made an allegation against Trump and it's not just a threat. They actually tried to kill him. Well, I think Trump's a bad man. Okay? Can you back up your allegation you made? Then Trump's just bad. All right, now let's hear Rachel's great response.
A question for both of us. I just want to quickly say this guy who is the white knight defender of women and
I never said I was the white knight.
You want to protect women, yet your very first DM to me was asking how many beers my husband had to have in order to
I did say that. You know why? I'll defend that.
The guts to have sex
I'll defend that.
Now, I thought this shit was hacked. Isn't that what he said the other day? This message, he thought that she messaged him first because it was a hack.
That's why I thought somebody hacked into my account, which, by the way, I think your friend Rob Knorr, his account was hacked. That's a normal thing. People get their accounts hacked.
It's not a normal thing for somebody to hack your account while you still have access to your account. That's not a normal thing.
Well,
that's the first. Yeah, hang on. That's the first thing. The other thing is that a feature of X is that you can delete messages from your side.
I've never.
Hang on. So Brian, hang on. Let me make the case. You can delete messages from your side. So why would it be the case on our side and Rachel's account? And I can pull those up right this second if you want. It clearly shows you going in and messaging her first. And then when you make the claim, no, somebody must have hacked the X account, why wouldn't it stand more to reason that you just went ahead and deleted the first message from your end to make it look like you never sent one?
You can believe that if you would like to, Andrew. I'm giving you my position and why I said what I said. And I'm not really sure what else you want me to say as far as that is concerned.
Doesn't that stand to more reason that you would just delete the message from your end? So it looks like she DM'd
Andrew,
you first, even though it was actually
Andrew,
you.
You could think that if you would like to. I'm telling you that that's not the case. And by the way,
can you show any evidence that your account was hacked at all?
Can I show any evidence that my account is hacked? So you mean live on the air right now? You want me to call X?
No, I'm just asking if there's any evidence that your account was hacked.
Have I called X?
No, I'm asking, is there any evidence at all that your account was hacked?
The only way I could have evidence that my account was hacked, and that was the original thing that I told you, is because I didn't understand why that direct message wasn't showing.
Well, it's because you made it up, right?
Well, you can make that claim if you would like to.
Now he's like, I'll defend it. Wow, what a difference a week makes. Now the hack story's gone. Now I'll defend it. Let me tell you why. Okay, now he's going to defend why he is DMing a woman, not just public, but direct messaging a woman, asking about her sex life and how much she has to drink to have sex with her husband. Here's his Mr. White Knight, treat women with respect. Here we go. You ready? Let's hear the explanation.
I'll defend that. And it goes to what Rob Knorr just said. Here's the reason why I said that. She put out a tweet.
I shared a tweet.
Excuse me. Let me just answer. Let me at least defend myself. She put out a tweet, a retweet, whatever you call it.
I just shared
doesn't matter.
A tweet about
she has a large platform, and she retweeted, or whatever you want to put it, a story about me with all the worst. My sister passed away at the age of 37. The person in this article, she doesn't care. Yeah, again, she doesn't.
What the fuck does this have to do with anything? Do you see? Does something horrible. Why did you do that horrible thing? I'm a victim. Look at emotionally. Oh my gosh. Well, my sister died. What? I mean, imagine. We're here in the cell of, this man who's received a life sentence for sexually assaulting this young woman in the park. What do you have to say? Why did you commit this heinous crime? Well, my sister died when she was 37. And this woman, she didn't even care about that. What?
She can give two shits. I'm answering why. I'm defending why I called you that and why I said that.
Because
There's
no excuse for you to say
okay, but it's an excuse to call people retards. Get lost. Go ahead.
And there but you can call people retards. I suppose what he's trying to say here is, if a woman calls someone a retard, that's the equivalent of you, a man, getting in her DMs and harassing her about her sex life. Equivalent. I called Gigi a moron, and so Gigi poisons my dog. I say, Gigi, my goodness, I love poor Dorothy. Why would you poison her? Oh, you're going to act offended like that when you called me a moron? It's absolute fucking lunacy. So somehow by speaking, I spoke, 20 seconds there? I got him to go spurg out for like 3.5 minutes, say absolutely nothing, and make himself look like a total asshole. And one of his key defenses to his treatment of Savannah Hernandez is no one's been arrested, which within 24 hours, 3 people were arrested. The L's just rack up. Now, here is the best part, and then I promise I'll get to super chats. All of that is not even the biggest story. We've saved the best for last. Brian gets to give the first closing statement. Now, you heard some of the behavior just there, and you've heard me explain what was going on throughout this debate. So what's Brian's closing statement going to be? Well, I knew this. It wasn't going to be any fucking arguments. That I was absolutely certain the dude wasn't going to make like coherent arguments in his closing statement. Why start now at the end of the debate? And this isn't long after that question you just heard asked. Maybe 3-4 people asked questions after me. So I'd like to thank James over at Modern Day Debate, where you can watch this video. Please go over there and give this a thumbs up. James worked very hard. He's doing a great job. I really do appreciate him moderating this. And the Modern Day Debate guys and Uncensored America, I think, are doing a great job trying to set up debates I'm a big fan, and I thought they put on a hell of an event. So, and I'm very much looking forward to DebateCon that they'll both be working on. So I'm going to play the closing statements. And I think that this is simultaneously one of the most vile, disgusting, pathetic, fucking closing statements I've ever heard from Brian Shapiro, and quite possibly one of the best responses I've ever seen to a tactic like this from Rachel. Thought it was phenomenal. Here is the closing statements of the debate.
You actually have to jump into the closings. These are 3-minute time sections. I've got the timer.
So he's amped up. We're yelling. You see how he's acting mere minutes before this closing statement, right? All right, here we go. 3-minute closing. Brian opened the debate. He gives the first closing.
Set for you. And Brian.
You want me to go first again?
Yes. In each case, you'll be going first. The floor is all yours, Brian.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I do a lot of shows that are way far to the right. I'm happy to do them, regardless of whether people agree or disagree with me. But I'm going to talk about something now very serious. And it's
Already. Hey, thank you all for being here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. This is the circle jerk Wilson crowd and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Fine. But fair. People do that. No problem. Here we go.
an emotional thing. And when I was doing debate prep for this debate, I learned of a horrible story that I am very sad to hear. That you had lost your 10-year-old son in a car accident, and my condolences to your family. It's awful. And unfortunately, we have something like that in common, Rachel, and I am truly sorry that happened to you. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. When I was 12 years old, my whole family got into a very serious car accident. I lost my grandmother. It's the reason why my sister passed away a few years ago, because of her injuries. And I learned at a very young age how precious life is. What does this have to do with feminism? Life is really short. And again, I say again, how sorry I am that your family had to go through that. It's horrible. And the reason why I talk about how short life is, I don't want to tell you guys what to do. I don't want to tell you guys that you can't vote because you're poor. I don't want to tell you guys that you can't be in the workplace. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a stay-at-home mom with kids, I think that's all great. I don't want to tell you what to do. When I was 14 years old, my dad introduced me to two radio hosts, Howard Stern and Don Imus. I didn't really like Don Imus very much. I said, Dad, I want to be like that. I want to be on the radio one day. And my family supported me. And I had to work really fucking hard, pardon my French, to get to where I am, to be able to even do something like this, to be able to go on Pierce Morgan, to be able to do those things. And I'm very humbled by that. But it wasn't because I'm a guy. It wasn't because I'm a male. It's because I worked my ass off, which I'm still doing every day. And if a woman listens to their dad growing up and they want to be a radio host, or they want to be a doctor or a nurse, or maybe they're poor, but they're still involved in politics and they want to vote, I say, do what makes you happy. Live your life. Don't listen to somebody, no matter what religion they are or who they are, tell you what to do with your life. I'm doing what I'm doing now because I worked hard. It has nothing to do with my gender or because I'm a woman. We all have tragedies in life, and I'm sorry for yours. 30 seconds. And I wish we didn't have that in common because it's awful. Don't let other people tell you what to do. I know there's a lot of people in this crowd that probably disagree with a lot of what I said today. And listen, that's okay. We have the freedom to agree or disagree with people. That's what makes this country great. But we're all human beings. I'm not perfect. I make plenty of mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, and I've probably said things in my life that I regret, but I own it. And so thank you all for being here. 5 seconds. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, James. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I appreciate it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I love having good debates, and I appreciate all you guys being here. Thank you very much.
I don't even know where to begin with this. If I played that for you, and you had no idea who these characters were, you had no idea what this debate topic was, what would you have guessed that was a closing statement for? What would you have guessed the topic was? Would you have had any fucking clue that he was, quote, defending that feminism has been good for women and children? Is there anywhere in that fucking speech
The guy's a raging dickhead the entire debate, saying things like, "Oh, Rachel, you're describing yourself," talking about sleeping with 50 men. All of this shit. He looks like an unhinged asshole in the Q&A portion. He thinks, just like with the opening, I'm going to sound magnanimous. I'm going to display a little vulnerability and emotion. I'll whip up some tears. Hey, let's all come together. That's the... I know we're hostile. This is good debate. This is good. Hey, all I'm saying is we shouldn't tell people what to do. That's all I'm saying, man. Thank you, God. I know you don't like me. James, thanks so much for being here. Rachel, I'm so sorry you went through a tragedy. I went through a tragedy too. In his fucking head, he thought that was a good strategy. Here's what he expects. He thought one of two things would happen. Rachel would be like, thank you so much for that. It has been difficult. And I appreciate that, we could have a robust debate and disagreements, but at the end, we could all realize that, we're all human and we have these tragedies. So that he could salvage like he did something in this debate. Or that Rachel would be like, you know what, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. And then come out sounding like an asshole. He's just trying to be a nice guy. He's a nice guy. Bringing up her dead child, who hadn't been brought up the entire debate, at the end of the debate, in his research for this debate, fuck you. You know what that piece of shit did today? He put out a timeline of Rachel's marriages and when she had children and when her son died to smear Rachel. But I'm sure in his research, he just stumbled upon this information and he felt bad. As if he wasn't looking at the people that use Rachel's son's death as a cudgel against her all the fucking time. So he brings this up to a mom to fucking try to have her have to think about and relive that moment again at the end of the fucking debate. Then tries to garner sympathy himself. I too have lost someone. What the fuck is the relevancy to this debate? Avarice. Actually, I think Green Lantern is superior to Orange Lantern. And let me tell you why, Avarice. I know recently your dog passed away. I had a dog, Annabelle. She was 14 years old. And we were hoping she'd make it through last Christmas. She had this big tumor on her side. At the end of December, she was rolling around and the tumor broke open. We had to rush her on a Sunday out to the animal clinic. I held her as they put the injection into her. There's nothing like looking down at your dog in the eyes. It was the first, within 2 months of dating my wife, we got Annabelle. She was with us our entire time. She's one of my son's best friends. And I'd sit there and hold her while she was dying. And I had to go out in the car and explain to my son the doctor wasn't going to be able to help her and she wouldn't be coming home. So I realized, that I'm glad we could have discussions like this. And I realized that no one should tell anyone, that Orange Lantern's better than Green Lantern. So the Green Lantern's better. So thank you all for your time. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Pretty impressive. Wow, I smoked him. What a chill, cool guy I am using that story. But hey, it really had to do with the topic, huh? And you see how I was almost able to whip up some tears too? Fucking outrageous. Absolutely fucking outrageous. And I'll tell you this, every fucking person in that room was incredibly uncomfortable. Everyone. Even people that aren't big Andrew Wilson fans. Though there weren't many in that room. But there were. I am serious about my dog dying. She did die and that did suck. I've talked about it on the trip. But the point is, I'm trying to think of something that was a real emotional situation with me to garner sympathy in order to win a debate over something that's not even remotely connected. Everybody felt awkward as shit. You're sitting there, you're like, what the fuck are we doing? And I didn't even know. My guess was that Rachel was going to be like, look, none of that has to do with the debate, so here's my closing. I thought that her response was absolutely incredible. So here we go. I could not, if you gave me 10 years to prepare a closing after that, I would not have came up with something better than this. At least the first half of it. You ready?
We could go over to Rachel for...
And look at Rachel. She's fucking furious. She's absolutely furious, and she has every right to be.
her 3-minute closing as well. The floor is yours, Rachel.
Okay, so this was very disappointing. We had no arguments from Brian whatsoever for why we should believe that feminism has been beneficial for women and children. He wasn't able to provide any data, any sort of measurement whatsoever to show that, hey, before feminism, this was what happened, and after feminism, this is what we got. We didn't get any of that. What we got was a whole bunch of logical fallacies and a person who doesn't understand what an argument is or how to debate. I'm going to list them off quickly, but join in the comments on the live stream if you caught more of these than I did. These were just some of the fallacies that we witnessed tonight from Brian. Non sequitur, argument from incredulity, straw man, ad hominem, category error, tu quoque fallacy, appeal to authority, argument ad populum. And on top of all that, we got moral outrage, we got appeals to your virtue and your emotions, and what we got from Brian ultimately was the best argument against feminism, because what feminism produces is emotionally incontinent, weak men who can't control themselves, who have violent outbursts, will insult you, will be angry and combative, and then try at the end of the debate to bring up your dead child and not even let you get through a debate in a professional manner addressing the topic at hand without crying and bringing up your dead son, who you probably don't want to be thinking about in the closing of a professional debate that you're trying to get through. So when he says, do what you want, man, follow how you feel. Life's short. Do what you feel like, just follow what you want. Follow your emotions. I would say no, don't do that. Find a strong, virtuous man in your life who knows how to hold boundaries and protect you, who can control his emotions, who can be the force of strength and stability that families need that we don't have anymore. Don't be a male feminist like this. Don't be this emotionally incontinent, just going all over on a tangent, unable to control your thoughts, unable to control your emotions, just spewing and vomiting emotional appeals to people in the middle of a professional debate, bringing up dead children, bringing up your abusive ex-husband. Be the kind of person who can actually handle getting up here and having an argument, making an argument, sticking to the topic, controlling yourself. And the fact that I, a housewife from the Midwest with no college degrees, no professional training, am better able than him to do that, just shows you this is the kind of men that feminism has produced, and this is why society is all messed up.
I mean, I thought it was, especially the part where she brought up him acting a fool, acting like a dick the whole debate, and then trying to bring up her dead son as sort of some emotional appeal to, what a load of shit. What an absolute load of shit. And she's absolutely right. That's what feminism has done to so many men. Not only behaving in a feminine manner, but then showing throughout the debate just how little he cares, in this case, for the treatment of women that he supposedly espouses. He was shocked. He didn't expect that. I'll take a minute to briefly, Brian made what were closely, if I struggle, only one thing in his closing that resembled an argument, which was, I don't want a society that tells people what to do. But this was answered throughout the debate. Women were allowed to own property before feminism. Women were allowed to work before feminism. Women did have divorces before feminism. In fact, Rachel was citing numbers before the suffragette movement, like the turn of the century in the 1900s. There was like 55,000 women that received divorce that year alone. And Brian's not being truthful when he says he doesn't want society to tell people what to do. Really? Did he want society to tell people to wear masks during COVID? To stay at home? To lock down schools? Did he want that? Because it seemed in this debate, he said that the women leaders that did that thing did the best. He doesn't want to restrict any firearm access? Really? That's interesting. He's against laws then? After all, he doesn't want to tell people what to do, correct? Well, that's not true though, is it? He does want to tell people what to do when it favors him. You think he doesn't want to tell people what to do when it comes to fighting climate change? You think he says, burn whatever coal you want. We don't give a shit. You think? He ain't no fucking ANCAP. Think he's against taxation? Doesn't want to tell you what you have to do. Doesn't want to force to tax you. That'd be telling you what you have to do. Pay taxes. You don't want that, huh? So even the one thing he makes that resembles an argument, which by the way has zero to do with the fucking debate, he's just factually wrong. But of course, that's not the real story in that closing statement. The real story is weaponizing the death of Rachel's son and then trying to appeal by talking about a difficult situation he went through with something that has nothing to do with the debate. Imagine if I debated some feminist who was the victim of a sexual assault, and it doesn't come up the whole debate. We're debating who should we vote for in the midterms, Republicans or Democrats. Nothing about her sexual assault comes up. And I'm abrasive and yelling and whatever, right? And then in the closing statement out of nowhere, I'm like, and by the way, I'm really sorry that you were the victim of sexual assault. I think that's terrible. And I too have been assaulted in my life, you know? It's terrible. So
You think that woman would appreciate it? You think she'd say? Or would she say, what the fuck does that have to do with anything that we're talking about? What does that have shit all to do? And how dare you compare yourself to me? And all the lefties would say, rightfully so, like, yeah, what the fuck? It just truly was one of the fucking worst performances I've seen. Again, I've seen worse performances, I'll be honest. But for someone who is doing a lot of these in-person debates and doing a lot of debates, I can't think of someone that I've seen do worse. On almost every level, the fucking fake moral outrage, the appeals to emotion, the fake pretending to be a good guy and then showing immediately that he's not, the victimhood complex, the fucking cringe, the not making any arguments, the few arguments you're making are rebutted, just restating the argument. I gotta believe that any person out there that's a feminist would not be happy that this was the person out there representing them in this argument. I gotta think they would be like, that's wretched. My guess is that I literally could take 95% of any random people that's an average Democrat voter, and they would have done a better job arguing for feminism in that debate against Rachel than Brian Shapiro did. And he's supposedly a professional debater. He's a syndicated radio host that does these sorts of debates all the time. He's a buffoon. He's a clown. He's a lolcow. He's invited on things because he's easy cannon fodder to destroy, because it's fun to get clicks, to pick on him, because you don't have to try real hard to beat him in a debate, because he's absolute garbage. That's his role, and he's proud of it. See, he's not in on the joke. We're all snickering and laughing at him, and he thinks we're friends. Just ask him. Michael Knowles is my friend. Jack Posobiec. It's a little thing called respect. It's respect, Rob. Respect. But that's it. That's the debate.